This is a how-to video on how to make a really simple large cargo plane. Start off with 5x5x5. This is an entire sheet of dollar store foam board. Then I reinforce it on the bottom. Another long piece. The back will be cut out here, so you don't need to reinforce that. Also, this time I'm adding a reusable nose, so if I do crash, I just replace the nose. You probably noticed there's an extra piece coming out the front that will be used to make the beveled bottom in the nose cone of the plane. I attached the nose of the plane here, put some tape around it. It does wrap around the bottom and attach to this piece with hot glue. Again, tape across the bottom here. And then I measured in enough that you can make your curvature for the bottom here, and then mark a line here where the very nose of the plane is going to meet, and then crease it, because this is going to crease back. You can start to see it take shape here. That's going to create the nose of the plane. This is how I make the wings. It's going to be two parts. Remove a strip of paper so you can get a fold. And once you do that, remove all the paper from what's going to become the top of the wing, and then you can easily fold that over to make your wing. So this is how I make a wing. This is two pieces of foam board that I cut before. Come back 1.5 inches in the fold. And then the layering method is when you use one of these big sidewalk stakes, go 4 small pieces of foam, hot glue those in place, and a top cap on it. And that's essentially what this is. I have to do the main spar across the center, one big piece, and then 2 ends to hold it, since there's no foam long enough to do the whole thing. And that gets pretty much to the end of the wing. So this is how I attach the motors to the wings. I 3D printed these motor mounts, and they utilize a small channel which you can run a zip tie through. So I do 2 layers of foam, the motor mount, run the zip tie through the motor mount, and then I have a piece of plastic on the bottom to keep the zip ties from pulling through the actual wing. So the tape on the plastic is just to keep the sharp edges away from the zip ties. The only time these have failed is the plastic cut through the zip tie. So I'm using small but heavy-duty zip ties to hold these on. There's no glue. If you need to replace a motor, or you want to use the motor for another project, you can simply cut the whole motor and the motor mount out. Also, if you ever need to tighten the motor mount, the way these work, when the wing is folded down, you can still access the screws in the back. I just simply put the servos through holes, get them in there nice and square, so when the wing's folded down. I also don't like the servos going all the way to the edge of the wings, to the edge of the aileron, because the aileron will warp a little bit then, instead of pull it nice and evenly. So, I like to have nice clean air on the edge of the wing, so have everything tucked in, the motor in, the servo in pretty far, but not so far that it's going to pull through the edge of this. Also, it helps to mark your plane where you want to put your wing. That way, before you install everything, you can line your wing up, take your access holes that you need, mark them, and then take your wing off and you know exactly where you need to cut. So here's the plane. This is how it ended up. I just did a simple kind of tape job on it. This is some duct tape, some teal duct tape. It's nice and bright for the top, and then orange on the bottom, just on the nose. I ran out of tape. I would have done some strips on the wings. I might end up and go over this teal on the bottom with like some black or something. That's the balance point, so at the peak of that triangle, 2 inches back is the balance point for these 8-inch wings. I've covered the whole plane in clear packing tape, so it's really waterproof, or at least water resistant. The servos are exposed, but they don't seem to mind getting a little snow on them. This guy is really covered too, because these aren't supposed to get wet. It's the video transmitter with a little cheapo cloak relief antenna on it. This is where the camera is. So this is the camera I fly off of, and then the GoPro that I'm filming with, so I can't show it, sits under that red strap there. So this is a nice little trick to keep the door shut, just a little piece of plastic that partially overlaps, keeps snow from coming in. And then on the inside, put just some little pieces of foam here so the door can't push in and fill with snow. But this is kind of inside view. I don't know how well this is gonna work, how much light's in there, but I guess I could grab a flashlight. 2 different ESCs. They're waterproofed-ish. One's in a plastic bag, which it doesn't seem to mind, and the other one is just wrapped in tape. They're actually, like I said, different ESCs. One's a Hobby King 45 amp Trust, and since it has the bigger BEC, that's what's running the plane. The other one is just a Hobby King, one of the blue 30 amp ESCs, and it's the red plug is removed on him, so it's not actually, the BEC isn't actually powering anything, it's just powering the motors. And then simply 1 battery to each ESC, so they drain at about the same rate, so it's not a big deal or anything. And then this is kind of a trick little piece I made that I like. It's just a kind of an inline power, I guess adapter or something. But you can, right now it's not plugged in, so it's not doing anything. But normally I'd plug the battery into here, and then plug the ESC into here. And you're like, so what does that do? Well, there's 2 servo plugs that are wired in, and they just provide power. I use servo plugs for power instead of JST or whatever, but they work fine. I end up hacking up a lot of old servo wires. If they get cut or destroyed, I just reuse them and make them into power plugs. So he's powering the camera. What's actually powering the video transmitter, which in turn powers the camera also. So right now, this would be in like line of sight mode. Video transmitter's not actually running or draining the battery. But if I plug this in, I would then have video. So that's kind of the internals. It's really simple. I mount the receiver high so it doesn't get packed with snow. Learned that the hard way. I ran its antenna under the wing and then out onto the roof and put a little piece of tape on it to keep it there. The differential thrust is tied into the rudder, so when you give left rudder to make the plane pitch left, the right motor speeds up and the left motor slows down. Hopefully this won't go flying off the chair, but... So here's the motors running. Now I'm going to say I want to go left, and it's going to... At this low of RPM, it actually stops the left motor. So I'm doing 20%, so it's adding 20% to the right, subtracting 20% from the left. So if you go a little faster, it doesn't even quite kill it there. So you can actually see the plane moving on this stool, so I put it on the stool because it's slick. But that's how it works out. The plane does have flapper-on, so one position, I don't really use position 1, I should increase it, but second position. And that's pretty simple. I set them to move slowly so the plane doesn't like all of a sudden, leap up in the air or anything. I also thought it'd be a good idea to explain how the failsafe works on this. So the receiver in this plane is a Orange RX 710, which has a built-in failsafe. So say you're flying around, I can't spool the motors up too fast, obviously. This isn't the safest thing to do, but I think we're fine. The cats are hiding somewhere. Oh, no, they're not. He's right there. Aren't you cute? So say you're flying, and you fly out of range. So I'm going to kill the power here and watch what happens. Motor's turned off, and then I preset it to do, essentially just to make a big swooping left-hand turn. Hopefully it would make a big left turn and not just start barrel rolling out of control. It would probably do something in between. Either way, it's gonna crash, but in my mind, that's better than it flying really far and ending up in a tree or something. Also, kill the motors completely. If you have any sort of electrical problem, you don't want those props spinning. I set the failsafe on my quadcopter once to be like 30%, and then I had a problem and it wasn't transmitting right, so I killed the controller and the props kept spinning, so I couldn't safely get to it. So always, I would say, 0 power to the throttle channels. Right now, the plane is still on, the batteries are still plugged in, but the transmitter is off, which is simulating it being out of range. I could turn the controller back on, watch it regain. All it's going to do now is, if I have all my switches right, so say you gained signal again, it's just going to go back. It's pretty simple, but it's really effective, and it can keep you from losing your plane or hurting yourself or someone else or your property, or your cats if you're working with your props on in the house like an idiot like this. If you want some dimensions, I believe this is 16 inches here by 10 inches, and then this is 10 inches tall by 10 inches wide, and then you just have to cut your groove. Everything on this plane is 2 inches, all the control surfaces, so 2 inches, 2 inches, and 2 inches. It's pretty good for an 8-inch wing. Here's like a detail of how far I go out from the edge before I actually put a control surface. That makes this really strong and beefy, so when you like dork your plane into the ground really hard, you don't like rip off a control surface or destroy the servo. They're really well protected, especially for a snow plane, because this thing, like, the tips will like drag on the ground when you land and stuff, and you want them to not get all messed up or destroy a servo. So yeah, I think that's all. It's kind of a long video, but I wanted to really show how to make it. If you're wondering, this is the donor plane. I'll put a short video in of watching me destroy this thing, but it actually would still fly. If I put servos and motors back in it, it would still fly, but this is what I learned to fly FPV on. I really destroyed it. Similar plane with a little window on the front, a lot more duct tape. It's really heavy. Yeah. This is the first plane that I built these supports on, and I like them a lot. It keeps everything really rigid, so like you crash and you're not bending stuff. I did them on this plane, like you can see, and I actually did them up under the wing too. I don't know, in my mind maybe I'll keep the wing from getting ripped off. Everything is attached with hot glue, so hot glued this on, hot glued the wings on, hot glued these. I just like, here, I'll rip this apart so you can see how they're made. They're really simple though. You just spool the wire around, put a dab of hot glue, and shove the wire in where you want it. So that's just some like wire in a circle glued on, and then same here. Control horns, I don't really buy control horns. I bought these a long time ago, so I just reused them. But I make them out of old propellers that I destroy on my quad or my tri. So I just like cut down the meaty part and then drill some holes in it. I made a video on it, but it's silly to show. They're just control horns. They're really easy to make. If someone wants a video like how to make free control horns out of broken props, I can totally show you that. Also, if you want a video on this guy, I can show you that. This is a waterproof 3D printed tri. It's completely 3D printed and designed by me. It has shock absorbing little feet. It's in a Tupperware container. It can be not in a Tupperware container, but it's really snowy here, so no way would I fly this thing unprotected. Maybe if I corrosion X the whole thing, but they don't sell that stuff up here. I'd have to order some, which I'm probably going to do in the future anyways, but yeah, this guy's really simple. Waterproof LEDs on the back, and then these, I think there's some tutorials on how to make these. These are those like really cheap LED lights you can buy at the dollar store, so I like doing that. They don't actually provide like that much headlight unless you're like flying really, really low, but yeah, waterproof tri. And the reason for waterproof tri, yeah, really, really snowy, so flight test guys in Ohio, I totally feel you. It's cold as hell and snowy here in Pennsylvania too. So I totally understand why you guys are going down to Florida for the FPV meetup. That sounds awesome. Alright, I'm getting tired of this thing beeping. I'm going to unplug everything and call it a day. One last video before I show you some flight footage of my, I guess you could call it FPV hat. I don't know. I put some bender eyes on the front because it looked like it needed some eyes. But yeah, this is the Hobby King Quantum DIY. I use no fractal lens. I put them in there and it just like makes the picture really shitty in my opinion, but pardon my French. But it works fine without the fractal lenses. My eyes can focus on that screen just fine. But I didn't want to use like the little strap that came with it, so I just put it on an old hat I had with a bunch of big Velcro strips, and I like it. I can wear it like all the way down on my face, or I can wear it up on my face, so I can like still check out the plane, which is nice for when you're just learning FPV. You can kind of fly a little line of sight, fly a little off the video, and go back and forth. This is a helical antenna. There's a lot of instructions to make these guys online, but they're really simple. This is a little 3D printed part, but you could just use a dowel if you don't have a 3D printer. But you just wrap down, make sure you do the same polarization as your antennas. I wasn't sure what these are. You can shine a light into it, and I saw that it was left hand circular polarized, so this one is left. If you put your hand out there and follow it, you see your thumb goes to the left. That's left hand. And the inside of the clover leaf does the same thing. It spirals up and to the left, so they're both left hand. It works really well. All this electrical tape is just to waterproof it because it's been snowing like crazy, and I don't know what could short out. It has a bunch of holes and stuff in it for the dip switches, so this all gets covered up with electrical tape and looks really janky, but it seems to work because I haven't fried it yet. I run it off these little 1000 milliamp batteries, so this is awesome. It costs $30 and you can fly FPV.